This is Orange Nation Overtime with Steve Infanti and Paulie Sibilia.
Welcome into Orange Nation Overtime alongside Paulie Sibilia. I'm Steve Infanti. Quite an eventful show today on Orange Nation from 12 to 2 on ESPN Radio. Syracuse, a 78-73 winner over Monmouth last night.
Unacceptable.
And based on the calls we had on the show today, Paulie, it felt like Syracuse lost by 20.
Yeah, it was kind of our artist of the day. We do an artist of the day was REM, and it was the end of the world as we know it, Steve. It was troublesome. And it was due to one fact. It was free throw shooting. You're up 14. They hack a shack down the end there, and it was a long 3 minutes, and Monmouth almost came back.
Yeah, up 14, comfortable lead, and then up 11 with about 3 minutes to go, as you pointed to, and then Syracuse just couldn't make a free throw down the stretch. Monmouth, to their credit, kept playing hard, kept making shots. They made it interesting late, even had a chance to tie it in the closing seconds with a three that was off the mark. Syracuse got the rebound, got fouled, made the free throws, won by 5. But 19 for 33, Paulie, is not going to cut it. And this team right now is shooting about 61% from the free throw line. I looked it up. It's not the worst in the country, but it's pretty darn close. It's well over 300th in the country in terms of free throw percentage. And, you can get away with that when you're playing Delaware State and Binghamton. You're up by 30. You can't get away with that against good teams, and especially in close games. And last night, it almost came back to bite them.
Yeah, you also can't give up 73 points to Monmouth. When you're playing these lower, they've got to be in the 60s. And the defense was not great in the first half last night. Much better, I thought, in the second half of the game. But it's just I don't think they had the defensive intensity that Coach Autry expects them to have for the whole game. Yeah,
and in terms of, you look at the numbers, and the numbers for Monmouth were pretty much even the first half to the second half. But to your point, when they built that lead, right, it was a 3-point game at the half. Monmouth, tied it. It was kind of nip and tuck. And then Syracuse went on a little run, creating some cushion. That was where the defense played great. And then down the stretch of that game, they couldn't make a free throw and they couldn't get a stop. And, Syracuse went into that game number one in the country in points allowed. They were number one in the country in field goal percentage defense and 3-point percentage defense. They had only given up 8 made threes through the first 3 games. They gave up 9 to Monmouth last night. And so, Monmouth puts up 73 points. And for a team that turns the ball over a lot, Monmouth only had 12 turnovers. So that didn't really feed into SU getting out in transition. They got out in transition a little bit here and there, but not like what we had seen in those first 3 games. Syracuse had 20 or more points off turnovers those first 3 games, only 15 last night. So some of this is you got to credit Monmouth. And we said going in that of the 4, they were probably the best opponent that Syracuse had faced to this point. And I think that was definitely true. But it's still a game that Syracuse should have won comfortably. They were up comfortably, up 14. And if you make your free throws, you win it by 16, 18 points, and nobody's even talking about this. But they couldn't make a free throw down the stretch. J.J. Starling just looks so uncomfortable at the line right now. He had 2 air balls from the free throw line, 2 for 5 from the line.
Took a weird shot that wasn't even supposed to be taken at the free throw line, like he was trying to get a practice shot up. It was strange last night.
Yeah, he just doesn't look comfortable. And he is one of your primary ball handlers. And in a close game against a good opponent, you don't want him to be a liability in the game that, if he gets the ball, of course, the opponent's going to foul him. So, he's been a decent free throw shooter in his career, 68% last year, 71% the year before. But last night, he wanted no part of being at the line.
Yeah, and something else came up. The rebounding was a problem last night. And it felt like it was the long rebounds again last night on the missed threes that they weren't getting. But Coach Boeheim used to say when his team in the zone got beat rebounding, we're turning people over. And Syracuse did get 12 turnovers, but you can't turn the ball over 12 times yourself in that situation because you need to get more possessions. So you got to be better with the ball, and Nathan George was great with it. The rest of the team, not so much.
Yeah, Nathan George was fantastic. 9 assists, 1 turnover to go along with 12.6 rebounds. He has been a breath of fresh air is the term I used on the radio show today. Just the difference, again, this is not a knock against Jaquan Carlos, but the difference between Nathan George running this team and Jaquan Carlos, it's like night and day. And you've got Nathan George, who he's not known as a three-point shooter, but he made 2 last night from 3. He was 2 for 3 from three-point range. Both of them were early on. And if he can do that, if he can knock down that shot here and there, it keeps the defense honest, right? And it keeps the defense respecting you. And then he's allowed to do what he's so good at, which is getting by his guy and creating for others. And again, finished with 9 assists and 1 turnover, coming off a game in which he didn't turn the ball over at all. That's a really good sign. And he is a difference maker on this team. A lot of people were concerned about Nate Kings and the way that he played in the first 3 games and didn't really shoot the ball all that well, but was doing other things. He was rebounding, had 9 rebounds in the previous game, which was a career high, was playing good defense, but he wasn't making the shot. He finally saw the ball go through the hoop from three-point range last night, 3 for 7, and I thought that was an encouraging sign heading out to Vegas.
Right, he's got to keep shooting the ball, and he's going to have a game like a Chris Bell did last year where he knocks down a bunch. You need one of those out of him. But he is doing what they have lacked at this position for 2 years, and that is rebounding and playing defense.
And he played very good defense. I mean, you look at Monmouth's best player. Now, some of it was Monmouth's best player, Jason Rivera-Torres, was in foul trouble much of the night. Only played 22 minutes because of the foul trouble. But even when he was out there, he went 2 for 12 from the field, including, the game-tying 3, the potential game-tying 3. They made it really tough on him. Nathan Kings played very good defense.
Yeah, Kyan Anthony also comes up a lot on our show.
He does.
Has played great offensively all season long. Past 2 games, 6 turnovers. So that's got to stop. He's got to be stronger with the basketball, and that's asking a lot out of a freshman. As much as he's got the last name Anthony, he's not his dad, and he's still a freshman. Yeah,
and the topic came up today about defenses, and Monmouth in particular last night, blitzing him coming off of screens and making him uncomfortable. That's something he's going to have to get used to because he's a scorer, and he's a freshman, and there are growing pains, and there's a transition period. It obviously made him uncomfortable last night. Houston is very good at that. I would imagine the Cougars are going to make him uncomfortable on Monday. He's going to have to work his way through it, and he will. He's obviously a very good player, but that's he's not a finished product at this point. And a lot of callers were trying to tell us that Kyan should be starting over JJ. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen anytime soon. I would be surprised if it happened at all this year. JJ is the starting 2 guard on this team. Kyan's going to come off the bench when everybody's healthy, and I think that's the way it should be. And I think Kyan is going to benefit from that. I think, again, the fact he doesn't have to come here and do too much, I think he's going to benefit from coming off the bench.
Still got 21 minutes last night.
He did.
That's fine.
And as he plays well, he's going to get more minutes. The more as he continues to play better and better, they're going to find ways to get him.
And the
minutes.
reason he got 21 minutes last night was because Nate Kings and JJ were efficient on the floor. And it's hard to get time over seniors when you're a freshman.
Yeah, and you want JJ back in the fold, and you want him to, listen, it was his first game last night of the season. So, let him shake off the rust, and hopefully he's, we say hopefully he's better moving forward. He was fine last night other than the free throws. Yeah. He hit maybe the biggest shot of the game, which was that three-pointer from the corner.
Yeah, he was, 4 of 6 from
4 for 6.
4 of 6 field, 1 for 1 from 3, and had 11 points. That's a fine game, and Kyan's going to get his minutes. And if that shot's going down, JJ probably would have played closer to 21 minutes himself, and it's all going to work itself out. If Nate Kings had not been playing well, Kyan probably would have had more minutes.
And this is not an excuse for why the game was close, but the officiating last night was a problem for both teams. I mean, there were 47 fouls between the two teams, 27 against Monmouth and 20 against Syracuse. And it's hard to get into a rhythm like that. And, it does help the underdog when there's a choppy game like that. And I did think Syracuse had a hard time, finding its rhythm, in part because there was a whistle every 2 seconds, it felt like.
And also, Monmouth stayed in the game because of they shot 25 free throws and they hit 20 of them, whereas Syracuse shot 33 and still hit less free throws than Monmouth did. They were 19 of 33.
Right, and Monmouth held its own on the glass. So I think if you look at, all right, what are the weaknesses of this team right now? The free throw shooting certainly comes to mind. I think rebounding is a number to keep your eye on. We saw it even in the exhibition games. Pace gave them a problem on the glass. I think that the rebounding is something to keep your eye on. And is this team good enough from 3-point range? They were last night. 7 for 17. You'll take that from 3-point range. That's 41%. Are they efficient enough from 3-point range. That's something that, remains to be seen. And not that this team is going to need to live or die by the three, but you want to be able to keep defenses honest and make your fair share.
Yeah, and if Syracuse shoots the free throws as well as, Monmouth does, it's probably an 85-73 game.
Right.
So... I'm not worried yet. Let's see how it. I've been saying this since day one. Don't get too high on these games against the CAA, and don't get too low on it. Let's see how it translates to. Houston's a tough one. They're the number one team in the country. They're the best defensive team in the country. If they go out and play well against them, let's see how it goes. If Kansas just hung in with Duke, let's see how it goes. And that third game is going to be important.
It's going to be very important. This stretch coming up, these 4 games, I'll throw Tennessee into that. This 4-game stretch is very, very important. Before we get to that, let's get to Mike Waters. We have him on our Orange Nation TV show quite often, talking Cuse basketball. We had him on our radio show today, and we opened him up by asking for his takeaways from the win over Monmouth.
The free throw shooting, especially even after the start to the game where I felt Syracuse was a little flat, sort of saw that coming after 3 straight blowouts. Would these guys really be ready to go right from the jump? Playing Monmouth, 9 o'clock start, kind of a quiet crowd at the Dome, smaller crowd. You could just sense that this wasn't, going to be a great start. No one was really ready. I didn't feel so anyway. But then with 10 minutes to go, you've gotten things under in order, and you're up by 14 with 10 minutes to go. And you're still up 11 with 3 minutes to go. But the free throw shooting just lets Monmouth right back in, and that was a problem last night. That stood out. So I know Red Autry talked a little bit about the intensity, and I think that's, a big part of his philosophy and how he wants his team to play, and he's not happy when they don't play that way. But the free throw shooting is something that we certainly should give you pause moving forward a little bit.
Have you ever seen a player shoot a free throw like JJ from the start of his career to where he is now? Like, what do you think has happened?
I'm trying to think of a guy who at one point just, was an okay free throw shooter, 60-something%. I think as a sophomore, JJ shot 71% from the line. I don't know if it's the injuries to his hand, both hands now, over the last year, or something else that's gone on. I've seen baseball players develop the yips. I mean, Steve Sachs couldn't throw to first. Dale Murphy couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher from catcher. Had to move to the outfield. It almost strikes me as something like that right now. But and then how do you approach it? Golfers get the yips. So I just think it's kind of a mental thing, and I don't know how you handle that. But I've seen him shoot it before. That's the thing. I've seen him shoot 71% from the line. Now, is that great? That's not Joe Girard numbers, but still, it's fine, especially if you surround him with other guys who we also think can shoot free throws, like Nate George, Nate Kings, Donnie Freeman. Each of those 3 guys last year shot 79% or better at the line. So, you should be able to get guys out there who can make these threes in crunch time for you. So maybe it's not as big a problem as it appeared to be last night, but, last night it was a problem.
As Paulie alluded to, Mike, there is a faction of the fan base, and I would say it's a minority right now, but there are people who believe that vocal minority. There are people who believe Cayenne should be starting over JJ. What do you say to those people?
Not yet. And probably not anytime this season. I mean, I like Cayenne. I think, when he had to fill in when JJ was out with the injury for those 2+ games, we saw him play well. But again, guys, let's remember, he was playing against Binghamton, Delaware State, and Drexel. Last night, Cayenne struggled just like everybody else did against Monmouth. He was 2 of 9 from the field, whereas JJ was 4 of 6. I know we're all focusing on a couple of bad free throws from JJ, but JJ, after not having played for 2.5 weeks, I thought his floor game looked great. 11 points on 4 of 6 shooting, 1 assist, 0 turnovers. And, if you're talking about Cayenne, 2 of 9 from the field with 2 turnovers, no assists. The numbers on the stat sheet don't jive with fans wanting Cayenne to start over JJ if we're just looking at last night, aside from JJ's 2 air balls. And it's not like Cayenne was perfect at the line. He went 2 for 5, which, by the way, is exactly what JJ did. So I'm not taking a senior like JJ out of the line. Gee, no way. Let's let this wine breathe a little bit, shall we?
Yeah, the topic in regards to Cayenne came up earlier on the show as well about how he was bothered by the being blitzed on screens and it made him uncomfortable. And as you mentioned, ultimately shot 2 for 9 from the field. How do you think he reacts to that moving forward? And he's going to go up against some good defensive teams, namely Houston coming up on Monday, known for their defense. How do you think he responds to that and kind of adjusts his game moving forward? Is it just the natural growing pains of being a freshman that he's going to learn to deal with that?
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is. And depending on how big of a problem, it might take a while, or maybe it's just something that he'll get used to. I mean, now, like you said, with Houston and Kansas and whoever the third team will be, followed by Tennessee back home, Cayenne and the rest of this team is about to take a huge step up in the level of competition. I don't know if any of them are ready for this right now. We don't know. I mean, they played basically nobody. If you're just looking at Ken Pom and net rankings, nobody that's ranked into Ken Pom's top 200, and they're about to go play a bunch of teams in the top 50 or top 25. So it's a huge step up. Cayenne will eventually be fine. Listen, he played high-level high school basketball at Long Island Lutheran. People need to remember this, too, about Cayenne, is he's adjusting to his roles here. He didn't start as a junior at Long Island Lutheran. He was on a stacked team. VJ Edgecombe was the star of that team 2 years ago at Lou High. I think he's fine in the role that they had planned for him. And, I think JJ will eventually be fine, too, once he gets back into the flow. But JJ's injury has interrupted Adrian Autry's process for figuring out rotations and minutes and stuff like that. So now they're having to adjust on the fly. And, one other wrinkle last night was the unavailability of Tyler Betsy, which almost became an issue when Donnie Freeman was out there with 4 fouls. And normally Tyler probably would have been the one you're going to send in in case it becomes in case of emergency break glass situation and he fouled out. So, yes, it'll be interesting, but I think Cayenne will be fine.
I made a very bold statement earlier that I thought Nathan George needs to play 40 minutes a game. What have you made of his play so far? There's a take in our callers, too, that Cayenne, the offense flows better with him on the court. I tend to think Nathan George is the biggest reason the offense flows.
Nathan George is hugely important to this team. I mean, 9 assists last night in 32 minutes and only 1 turnover. That's the other thing, too. He's averaging well over 6 assists a game this year, but the turnovers have been low. Now, again, we got to look at the quality of competition, especially when it comes to the turnovers. But George is going to be critical to these games coming up in Las Vegas. You guys mentioned Houston's defense. Steve, you mentioned Houston's pressure. Nathan George, as an upperclassman, a junior, he's played ACC level basketball for 2 years now. He is a key, and I agree with you, Paulie. He might be the key to the whole offense, no matter who else is scoring. And it's been good too because he has been adding his own offense here. And I think they need him to do that as well. Because he can score, he can shoot, but his first job is protect the ball and distribute the ball. He's really done really well with that, and he's learning these guys. I think he's learning where guys want the ball. It's too bad he hasn't had more game time experience with his backcourt partner and J.J. Starling, but I think that's why last night was really important to get J.J. back out there.
Mike, you mentioned Tyler Betsy. You were the first to report the other night that he was not going to play against Monmouth. What is your understanding of the injury, foot injury? Do you have a feel for whether or not he's going to be available for that Vegas trip, namely on Monday against Houston?
I don't know. I'm not sure. And we're still 4 or 5 days out from there. He had the boot on his left foot yesterday. I went back and I listened to Adrian Autry's answer to a question about Tyler, and I got to admit, it left me a little confused. I couldn't tell the way the question was phrased and the way Adrian answered it as to like whether he was saying that he would be good to go to Vegas or that he might. I couldn't tell. So I got to make a couple phone calls on Tyler over the next day or two. Is what I'm telling you guys. But I would think, especially possibly having to play 3 games in 3 days, that you'd love to have him available. Because, again, we saw last night where it almost became very important to have him there if Donnie had fouled out. And that's what Sadiq White's, playing well. But Sadiq's a great defender, and he wants to be a great defender. He likes that. He's got to learn how to defend without fouling. He's got to get his hands off, But I still like his role there. But I think to add 3-point shooting and to have a decent foul shooter out there at the end of a game, that's where you might need Tyler next week.
All right, you were on our Orange Nation TV show on Monday, and I asked you, I said, give me, what % chance does Syracuse win 1 game in Vegas? What's the % chance they win 2? You said 50% chance they win 1. You said 40% chance they win 2, and you pointed to Kansas and their injury to Darren Peterson, who did not play last night against Duke. Since we had that conversation, Kansas went out and played Duke really tough, even without Peterson. Syracuse struggled with Monmouth. Now we know about the Tyler Betsy injury. Do you feel like you need to change your answer at all, or do you stand pat with what you said?
We're going to make this like overreaction Wednesday, right?
Exactly.
I'm glad you brought that up. I would like to change my answer.
Okay.
I think I might stick around the 50% mark that they're going to win 1.
Okay.
I think they can do that. I know last night didn't look good, but I'm trying hard not to overreact. The fact that not just last night how they looked, it's more of we learned today that Kansas coach Bill Self is saying that he expects Darren Peterson to be available next week. Because of that 40% figure I gave you on winning 2, I might drop that down to the 25 or 30% range.
Okay. All right. That's fair. Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I was just going to say also, just like Monmouth came out against Syracuse last night, Kansas is going to play Duke well. Everybody gets Steve. You're a Duke fan. Everybody's going to give Duke their best shot, right?
They're going to try.
Yeah.
But sometimes you think you're going to give Duke your best shot, and then Duke is Duke.
Yes,
and
right.
It doesn't matter. And especially when you're playing without your potential All-American freshman, tough for Kansas to win that game last night, but they stayed in it. Against I think Duke's great, by the way. When we talk about some of the teams, and I know Gonzaga's up there and Houston's up there, but man, I like Duke a lot. They look great. I think Kansas will be tough. The big key might not even be Darren Peterson. It might be Kansas's one big guy, Badunga. They are so much better when he's on the floor. When he goes out, Kansas struggles a little bit. Will Kyle against Badunga next Tuesday will be a key.
Again, that's Mike Waters, beat writer from Syracuse.com, does a great job covering the team. Be interesting to see what happens with Tyler Betsy. Obviously, he missed the game last night. He is an important part of this team. He comes off the bench, but he provides depth at the forward position, and he has shown that he's got some scoring punch to him when he's able to knock down a shot.
Yeah, and he was a name that didn't even come up in the preseason, right. In the offseason. And now he can hit some shots. He could spell Donnie if he's getting into foul trouble, and maybe he could be on the floor at the end of the game, which sadly, if JJ can't hit the rim.
Before we got into that interview, you brought up Houston and Kansas. Listen, I don't know what to expect against Houston. They're on another level. The Kansas game, I think that, you look at that and there's a question whether or not their star freshman, Darren Peterson, is going to play. He missed the Duke game again last night with a hamstring injury. Bill Self originally indicated that it sounded like it was going to be a longer injury. And then last night after the Duke game, he seemed to indicate that Peterson could be back for Vegas. So that's something to keep our eyes on because Kansas is a much different team and a much better team with arguably the best freshman in the country on the floor and, maybe the best player in the country on the floor. A lot of people have him him going number 1 in next year's NBA draft. Even without him, Kansas hung in there with Duke. That was a very close game until the very end, and Duke was able to pull it out down the stretch because they made their free throws, among other things, and executed. But it's hard to really know what to expect, Paulie, going into this trip, just given that Syracuse has played 4 lesser opponents. Kansas to this point, they've played both North Carolina and Duke, so they're battle-tested, and again, Houston is Houston.
Yeah, and they lost both of them, to be fair. So let's also say, hey, Syracuse's defense, let's see if what we saw the first 3 games is legitimate. Let's see if it holds against a team like Houston. Houston's not a great offensive team. Can you go out and bully them right back like they do to everybody, keep yourself close, maybe get a win out of that game? And that kind of makes me wonder if it's like Virginia used to be. Virginia was a dominant team, but they never really got away from people. And if you could stay close to them, you could beat them.
Yeah, you never know what can happen. Before we leave you here today, just want to remind you what we've got coming up tomorrow. We've got Fran Brown on the show tomorrow, right at 12 o'clock. Adrian Autry, 1 o'clock. And then the voice of the Orange, Matt Park, coming up at 1:30. That's on our Orange Nation radio show on ESPN Radio and QSportsTalk.com. Before we part ways on Orange Nation Overtime.
Steve, did you know that Popeye the Sailor Man was inspired by a real person? Frank Rocky Feigl. Feigl was a rough and tumble guy, got into brawls on a regular basis like you, big fighter. He even trademarked, guess what physical features he had that he shared with Popeye? I don't even know.
Big arms?
Yep, and tattooed on his forearms were anchors.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So he had the anchors. I don't know that he ate spinach. Were you a big spinach guy as a kid?
No, I know that shocks you. Not really into spinach.
I don't like spinach either. Yeah. Spinach is not good. Spinach, kale. I'm not a big greens guy. I do enjoy broccoli.
You know I have a strong take on kale, by the way. Right, that nobody actually likes it. They just eat it for the health benefits.
Well, yeah, that's like any time a fad comes up.
But I've had people tell me that, like, oh, no, kale tastes good. I don't believe I don't believe it.
It's like matcha right now, right? Isn't that what that stuff's called? Yeah, I'm not. That kind of tastes dirty to me, but, I get it. It's healthy.
There's health benefits. And I'm okay with that. Like, if you want to eat your kale because there's health benefits, but don't try to convince me that you enjoy kale.
But, yeah, when I was a kid, spinach was beaten into my head that you got to eat your spinach and you got to eat your carrots or you'll go blind.
I love carrots.
I do know that.
You know this.
Yeah, and
although my eyesight's not great, right? It should be. Given how much I like carrots, I should have 20/20 vision.
All right, we got to shut up about this stuff. There's more important things.
I know. We got to go.
Studio.
We got to go. Thank you, everybody, for listening. For Paulie, I'm Steve. We'll talk to you again tomorrow, everybody.